What is going on, guys? Welcome back to more games, and today we are finally back in Talon's Creek. Yes, I know it's been a little while since we were in this park, but I have been busy organising some other sorts of videos along with some collaborations for the channel. Hopefully by the time this video goes up, one of them will already be out on the channel and be working on another couple of those videos. So there is going to be a lot of videos coming up on the channel within the next couple of weeks, even though there has been kind of a downturn on videos being uploaded to the channel. Like I said, have been working hard on some new projects and hopefully you guys are going to really enjoy them. So we are finally back in Talon's Creek Park, and in the last episode we did get finished with the first ride, which of course is the one in the background there, Rickety Springs. Now, Rickety Springs is based on a massive mountain, and I didn't want to just have that one single ride using all that space, so I did decide to actually integrate another separate ride into the space and the mountain of Rickety Springs roller coaster. So that is what we're doing in today's episode. So as you can see, we are building a water ride here, which does actually go through the middle of this mountain. So the great thing with this ride actually using the same sort of structure as the first ride in the park, it actually makes the ride compact but actually large at the same time. So a lot of this ride is on the inside of this mountain where we can put some intricate details and a lot of triggers and all that sort of crazy stuff on the inside of this mountain, and that sort of decoration will come in the next episode. In this episode we do work on getting the layout of the ride complete, and also some buildings around the main entrance to the ride, and just getting the generalized feel of the ride complete. So I did have a lot of problems actually getting this part of the ride here to actually go underneath the exit of or the entrance bit of the roller coaster. As you can see, the roller coaster comes out and goes over the top of this little bit of water here. So I did want to actually have this ride itself go underneath that bridge, which actually was quite a pain in the ass because there was a fraction of an inch where if it was too high it wouldn't work, if it was too low it would bug out with the water that was in there. So it was really quite intricate actually, and I didn't actually realize it was going to be that difficult to do this, but we finally got it to go through there in the end, which is fantastic because we can have a waterfall coming off that little bridge there as the ride comes back to its station. It's going to be really fantastic. There's a lot of detail that we can do with this ride as it comes back to that station. So once I had that underneath there, I decided to go from the beginning of the ride and actually design the exit of the ride itself instead of carrying on from the other end. Sometimes it's nice to work backwards with a ride as well and then connect them sort of in the middle to get everything perfect. Now, as you can see, a lot of this ride is actually towards the main entrance to the park itself and towards the border of the park. I did this for one specific reason, that little line there where the entrance to the ride is. There's going to be a lot of detail around there, and kind of like a mini main street, I guess you could call it. There's going to be a lot of buildings hiding the entrance and a lot of the actual trough area of this ride. As you can see, we're just taking a little journey to make sure that this little loop here actually works properly, as it does. I did actually go back into there a little bit later on and actually fix that up a little bit because it was a little bit bumpy, but we did get that perfectly smooth in the end. So at this point in the build, the whole of this ride is actually complete. Now, there won't be a POV for this ride until all of the scenery is complete. We do get a lot of the scenery and the building work done in today's episode, so don't worry about that. But in the next episode, we will finish everything off, get everything tied in together, and at that point, that's when the POV of this ride will be released. Hopefully you guys are really going to like it, the way that I get the scenery on the inside and the outside of the mounting there. Hopefully I can get it all integrated together and actually bring some flat rides into the scenery as well. There is a lot of spare space around this area where flat rides, shops, toilets and stuff like that will be able to fit around this ride. So all of those little things will come together and probably make this one of the best designed or scenery areas in a park I've done to this point. So I'm really looking forward to getting that sort of detail into this ride. As you can see here, we are working on the building that actually goes around the station of the ride. This building itself is going to be the bank, so it's a Western themed bank, and to the left and to the right of this as well, where the staircases, the entrance and the exit to this station is, we do have some more buildings that I do put there. As you can see, we're just getting the final touches here to the bank exterior, putting the sign up the top there. So the next thing I wanted to do to this bank here was actually get the platform on the bottom. Like I said in previous episodes, I do look up reference images for these designs. Of course, I don't copy them one to one. I do use different images, different references, bring them all together to make something that is probably the best thing that I can do for this specific build. So I did want to get some sort of porch area or some roofing area down here, so when you walk up to the bank, you are covered as well above you. It just gives the building a little bit extra shape. A lot of the buildings in Western themed are kind of rectangles or squares, so there's not really much detail to work with. So having these sort of porches on the front of the buildings being held up with some wooden beams and having it lifted off the ground just a tiny bit can give a lot more perceived decoration to these sorts of buildings than they would without them. So I like to add these sorts of details to the buildings just so they have a little bit more shape and depth to them, and they just overall in general look a lot nicer than they would if they didn't really have them. So windows and doors on these types of buildings also play a big part in how the building will overall feel and look in the end once it's all complete. So I did spend a lot of time looking through the different types of windows, seeing how I can mix them and match them up together, making larger windows out of two smaller versions with another one put in the top for a little bit extra detail. All that sort of stuff comes together to really finish off the shape, design and feel of this bank building. So as you can see right now, we're just right by the entrance to this whole park here, and I did want to kind of hide this part of the ride here. We are going to have the other side of the main street down this side as well, but this little bit won't be covered with buildings per se, so I did want to have a little bit of a hill here hiding that part of the ride for the guests coming into the park and also the ones that were on the ride as well. So I did just go in and cover these with rocks to make it kind of a rocky mountain instead of just a painted mountain. It's not really a mountain, it's more of a hill, but it does end up coming together pretty nicely with this ride. It hides what I want to be hidden and it allows people to see what I want them to see. So when they come into the park, they aren't just hit with loads of steel beams. That is actually decorated there as well, and it just makes everything feel a little bit more natural. So this little section of the ride here was really quite difficult to get right. There was a lot of space here, and the design of this little section was quite awkward because it is very close to where I want to have buildings for the main street. So I didn't want to bring it too close to the pathway to actually block where some of the buildings will go for the main street. So I had to be very careful with the sort of design and shape of what I was going to do there. So I did just make a little kind of like rocky area that I go back in later and decorate with some bushes, some trees, all sort of in the desert kind of theme. Actually get some props and animated people in there as well a little bit later on in the video. So now the pathways around this area kind of taking shape, you guys can probably get a feel of what is being planned for this area. There's going to be a lot more buildings around here, a lot more scenery, a lot of things for the guests to actually take a look at, and it's going to be really nice with stuff like the trees and the desert kind of theming that I'm going to get going on in this area. So the Western theme in this game actually has a lot of details and a lot of props and scenery pieces that you can put into decorating this kind of area, because this is mainly a western side of the park. I wanted to get those details in just to bring everything together. So as you can see right now, we are working on some more buildings around the main entrance to the ride here. This building here, I don't have a plan for what this building is going to be just yet. Of course, these buildings are kind of hiding the walkways in and out of the rides because of the way that I designed the pathways in and out. I did actually have to put a few more buildings here than I first planned or thought I would, but in the end, I think they worked out pretty nicely. This one right on the end here is going to be a gunsmith's where people can go in and get their guns, buy, sell, or have fixed. Who knows what would go on in a gunsmith. back in Western days. This one here also, this green one, don't know what this is going to be yet. So these are the sort of things that you guys can let me know in the comment section below. What should these buildings be? What do they look like? What do they feel like they should be? Let me know, and I may pick one of you guys' suggestions and actually put that into this park. So the next building on the list here, the last one here on the end to hide this pathway, is actually a funeral parlor. So this is where people go when one of their family members passes away, to buy a coffin and whatever sort of service you need for that. Grave digging, I suppose. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of decoration around here with stuff like coffins and tombstones and all that cool stuff out the front of this building. So a lot of the scenery is already in place here, so I did want to go back in, just add a few more rocks, textures, details in this kind of pathway or entranceway to this ride. Of course, this little pathway here weaves in and out of this little zone, so I did want this to be heavily themed, so people that are queuing up for the ride don't get too bored and just have to stare at some grass or something like that. So I did want to go in and get some good details in that kind of area. So as you can see, this little awkward piece of terrain here, like I mentioned before, this little section of the park was really difficult. It was kind of a tight curve around here. We didn't really have much room to play with because there is going to be a lot of buildings on the other side of this. So I had to be very careful with where I place stuff, so I didn't actually have to go back in later on and remove it when I decided it was time to work on the other side of the main street. You may be wondering why the other side of the main street hasn't been built yet. I previously did say that I was going to build it in the second episode of this series. However, I decided to hold back on it yet for a little bit because stuff like this, where rides are going in, I didn't want to have to change up the main street later on down the line if stuff was in the way. So I wanted to get rides in this area, so I knew where the kind of design of the main park was going before I decided to put in the other side of the main street. But when we finally get around to putting in the main street, I think it's going to fit a lot better than it would have done before if we just put that in straight away. So I'm really happy with the way that this park is turning out so far. We're getting a lot of details in. It's really feeling like a well decorated park right now. I'm trying to not go too overboard with this park. It's really easy to over decorate stuff and kind of lose a little bit of the realistic side of a park. There's not many parks in the world that are decorated 100%. There's of course Disney and stuff like Phantasialand in Europe, but most other parks aren't decorated quite this much. So maybe I'm going a little bit overboard with my decoration, but you guys love decoration, so why not do it anyway? Who cares about realism? If it looks fantastic, what's the problem? So I'm going to keep decorating until you guys tell me that I'm doing too much decoration, I suppose. So this little rocky kind of hill right next to the entrance of the park here was kind of a little bit too lonely, I guess. There wasn't really much detail on it other than all these rocks. So I did go in here, put some dead bushes around the places and some sort of trees for the kind of desert feel that we're going for with the Western theme of this ride. And I think it really topped it off. It made it come together pretty nicely. There's a lot of scenery around here for the people on the ride to actually take a look at now. And there was this one little section here with the entrance back up towards the end of the ride that was kind of a little bit dangerous here right next to the path. So I did decide to go for a kind of wooden beam fence, something I've never really done before. I normally go for kind of normal looking rectangle or square fences, but what I did here was just shove some poles into the side here, and it looked really natural. Not natural in like the nature kind of way, but natural in something that you would probably see in an actual theme park, just to block people from climbing up there or getting hurt or injured or anything like that. So that's why I went with that kind of design. It really worked out quite nicely and I liked it a lot. So it's probably something you're going to see a little bit more in this park in the future. So of course there are a few more little scenery decorations to go on to these buildings. None of these buildings yet have roofs. That is intentional because I do want to go on the inside of these buildings as well and put some decorations in there for the guests as well. So before I put the roofs on, I will go in a later date, get some decorations on the inside, maybe put some animatronics and stuff like that on the inside, and then of course the roofs will go on to complete these buildings. So as you can see, the gunsmiths here is coming into place. I put a few of these little revolvers on the side, I think that's what they're called, I'm not really too sure, these guns on the sides of the building here, just so people know it's a gunsmith, and I put some effects in there with some smoke as well. And this building here, of course, is the coffin shop or the funeral parlor, whatever you want to call it. I don't really know what these shops are called, I've never had to go to one. I just named it the funeral parlor for now and put some coffins on the outside. And that is pretty much it for this video, guys. I hope you have enjoyed it. Sorry for the lack of videos in this series so far on the channel for the last couple of weeks. I will be more up to date in the future, so hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please drop a like, feel free to subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next episode very, very shortly. Thanks for watching.